This program is brought to you by Emory University.
On April 8, 2015, the Center for Faculty Development and Excellence at Emory University hosted Meet the Editor and Agent, an annual event that brings experts in publishing to campus. The featured speakers were Eric Zinner, Associate Director and Editor-in-Chief at New York University Press, and Sam Stoloff, Vice President and Senior Agent at the Francis Golden Literary Agency in New York. In this video, Mr. Zinner explains the impact of digital media on the production and distribution of scholarship and how academic authors can adjust to the uncertainties of digital publishing.
But what I want to talk about was the turn to the digital. We're in an odd moment of churn and indecision, really, in scholarly communication. What do we do? What do we mean by the digital? What do we do with it? Where does it impact us? So there are things, and I really want to talk about the stuff that's happening now and is about to happen, and stay away from the more sort of pie-in-the-sky stuff that may or may not happen. We can speculate about some of those things, but so there are a few things. The production of scholarship itself is changing. The humanities and the sort of humanistic social sciences, which is where the majority of what NYU Press at least does, and really a majority of University Press book publishing is about, although obviously there's publishing in business and science and other things, but a lot of the historic weight of scholarly publishing, book publishing, has been in the humanities and the humanistic social sciences. So they have joined their science colleagues in now expecting to find much of, or you have, find much of your resources and archives that you need online. So both the research tools and the primary sources, which is to say the building blocks of scholarship, are being produced in or converted to digital formats. That's happening, obviously, at a pace you can't even, I think every time you turn around, an archive that you used to have to travel to is now accessible. So secondly, the distribution of scholarship, the broadcasting function of scholarly communication, has also tilted online. So while you may not necessarily read everything online, you find everything you want to read online. And you locate what you want to read online. If you can't, if a work or an object is not discoverable online, it is effectively non-existent. Except for well, it's non-existent, really. I mean, it's amazing to me, even talking to historians and people who are used to working in the archives now, there really is this, when they cop to it, that if they don't see it online, it really sort of ceases to exist. Again, not the object itself, but at least being able to locate it. The third part is the trickiest part, which is right now, which is that while the research and dissemination of scholarship exists largely digitally, the writing and the presentation of the work is largely analog, which is to say print. And there's a bunch of, and that's really where most of the churn and sort of indecision is happening. So as one example, to address this, the Mellon Foundation issued an RFP to develop shared, this was, over the summer, last summer, to develop shared capacity and infrastructure in one or more of the following areas, as I said. One or more of the following areas of long-form digital publishing for the humanities: editing, clearing rights to images and multimedia content, the interaction of the publication on the web with primary sources and other related materials, production, pre- and post-publication peer review, marketing, distribution, and maintenance and preservation of digital content. I say all that, on the one hand, it's only Mellon. On the other hand, those of you who are in this, like I am, as a foundation, their importance to scholarly communication cannot be overstated. It's actually kind of terrifying how central they are to any innovation that happens right now in scholarly communication. So the research and discoverability is online. The writing, by and large, is not. And having lived and worked through the first two waves of digital publishing, which were CD-ROMs and hypertext, that is how old I am. I'm wary of, so when these may be hard to appreciate now, but when they arrived, they were seen in the same way that what's going on right now. This was going to change everything. And in effect, in the long form kind of Hegelian dialectic sense, yes, it did change everything. It's just that they didn't stay. but they got sublated into what we're at now, right? So, but I became, through that experience, became wary of technology driving scholarship, because what you saw a lot of then was there was a neat new tool, particularly with hypertext. There was an embarrassment, not of riches, just an embarrassment, of people, this neat new tool that people wanted to do things for. And a lot of, frankly, not terribly rigorous scholarship got produced through that, which is to say the technology leading the scholarship. What I'm looking for and been waiting for is the scholars to demand new tools, which is to say that their work needs new tools, needs new media of expression. Not that there's a neat new thing to play with and to see what it can do, but to say, I can't do my work without a different set of tools. That's the moment we're at now. It's fields and individual scholars. It's very uneven development. I work in media studies. It's not surprisingly, one of the areas that has been demanding the most in terms of new tools. So that's the moment that's upon us, and needing ways to integrate digital resources into long-form interpretive scholarship, also known as books. So I want to talk a little bit about what we have right now and what are the tools that are being that are on the way. It's a longer story about that. We could talk about technology and about lowest common denominator and about things that can be used on all kinds of, even this, you'll see there's a warning about things you can use it on and things you can't. So that the first generation Kindles that are out there won't do this. But we've been waiting and waiting for this. So, and what this is, and they have a strict size limitation, 0.5 gigabyte altogether, which if any of you are involved know very quickly, you can do a lot of sound and video, you eat up 0.5 gigabyte in a big hurry. So it's compressed and embedded in this. So these are a sound and video that are embedded in the file, not accessed through the web, so that even if you're offline, you can open it up and the screen opens up. This is one of the first examples that your neighbors in North Carolina did, and really intriguing. So you'll start to see more of this. So one of the things that happens is you'll start to see editions of books fork off in meaningful ways from one another. We're used to so here's a book, or one of our books, it's available. It's a hardback and a paperback and a digital book, and available through various platforms through your library. But all those editions are the same book. What you'll start to see now is the editions fork off and be different in meaningful ways. So this is no longer the print book. They're two different things. The text is the same. It has these added resources that makes the experience of reading different. And I think we'll start to see, I certainly hope, and for us, we'll start to see this more and more. Raises all kinds of questions that are complicated about archiving and about fair use, but we can come back to that. These are questions that we have to get engaged in. So what we have that needs to be further developed, things that are starting to happen now. I want to use an example. So we published a book, just published a book called Complex Television by a scholar named Jason Mattel. And it had an interesting history that I wanted to show people, as I think it's emblematic of the kinds of things that you'll start to see. So it started life as a serial publication on a website called Media Commons, which is a kind of omnibus media journal and blog and everything else. It's a really interesting site. I encourage you to check it out. There's a journal in it called In Media Res, and a lot of other things happening within the Media Commons site. This is a piece of it called Media Commons Press that publishes books. This is the second book. We published a book by Kathleen Fitzpatrick called Planned Obsolescence on the digital humanities and digital publishing that started life in the same way, and Jason followed up with the same thing, which is to say, he published a book chapter by chapter in order. Here you can see the order of release. And once these chapters were published in this software called Comment Press, what Comment Press allows you to do is to comment, raise questions, give Jason a chance to respond. This is throughout the entire book, chapter by chapter. So what happened is there's a process of revision. This is the book that was published in, the chapter that was published in 2012. Through these comments and through this process of back and forth, what's called open peer review, he revised. What eventually happened is we went out for our own blind form of peer review, and he used both side by side. We didn't use this. We're not our board did not want to hear so much about what was happening here. It was understood as a separate project in terms of peer review. We did our peer review, and we can talk again about, if people are interested, about the different nature we found of the kind of peer review we do and the kind of peer review that this provided. But this evolved into a final book. We knew that this book was available, open access. It still is to anyone who wants to see it. It is a different edition of the book. It is not identical to our book, but certainly the kind of core of the argument and that sort of thing is available here for anyone who wants to see it. So one of the questions is, what happens in a commercial sense, what happens to a book that we have now printed and published that is in part or in a form available online? So speaking of printed and published, so we went ahead and printed it like we do as a paperback original. It's also available on Kindle in the form, in what we consider, well, I hate to say, I wouldn't want to say necessarily final form, but our final form anyway. One of the things that gets messed with now is what's the nature of publication. My people at the press and my board were kind of a little puzzled by this when I said the book had already been published. It's already been published. It's online. It's published. We don't get to determine whether a book is published. It's published when it's available. So the book was. Some people call it a post-publication publication. We're getting into kind of a terms of art, I guess. But so this is available in all these different formats. The third iteration of the book is a companion site through a platform called Scalar. It's a different form of publishing. Full texts are published on this. In this instance, I think it's a particularly good use of the Scalar platform, which is Jason built, with their help, a lot of their help, a companion website to the book. So this mimics a table of contents of the book exactly. And when you go to the chapter, what you get are the embedded clips that he's talking about in the site. All of these are playable. Long story short, you have this book that has had these different iterations. I think this kind of thing you'll start to see, again, more commonly. It's a little kludgy. It's a little, where you have to go to these different places to see the same thing. And one of the things that we're doing now is I'm having our production people look at the Scalar site and see what of it can we import back into the Kindle book, so that you don't have to be online, you don't have to go to a different site, but we can do this, so that we can issue a new edition of the Kindle book on the fly. We just export a different file to our partners, and there's a new version of it without having to make any big news about it that now has video and sound embedded in it. Second to last thing I wanted to point to was something that's available right now is reading in a browser environment. So as opposed to the Kindle that you take away and all the different readers that you take away, this is something that you have to be online. It only makes sense online. Michigan has been doing this, I think, the longest. These books that are published that are also for sale, but they're available online in this particular browser format. Right now, these are fairly straightforward, simple texts, but they're easy to read, and they make easy. The navigation is easy and intuitive. Last thing I wanted to point to. So we do a series called Keywords, a series of key terms in these various fields, and the kind of historical embeddedness of those terms is meant to be played out in these short essays. So the first edition had 60 words. The second edition had 30 new words. So the question is, what do we do with the extra 30 words? Or the new 30 words, not the extra, but the new 30 words, the old 30. We have 90, that's too big for a book. We didn't want to put 90 in a book. So we decided to build a website that would house the 30 words alongside the 60 in the book. These are all the essays that are available now only on the web. Most of these were available in the original print book, some of them were not. So what this is, the reason I'm bringing this up and the reason I think it's important is an example of a print-digital hybrid book, where the online portion not only contains material not in the book, but more importantly to me, it catalogs and indexes the print book so that it can be researched online. Even if you need the book to read it, everything that's in the book is discoverable here. Once you get beyond the 1, 2, 3, you start to have hundreds of keywords available in these print books, but able to be researched, searched, used in this online environment. I think these kinds of things we'll see more and more of, and hopefully we'll get to more and more elegant solutions to some of these things.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.